Far away, beyond the stars, lived a powerful alien species called the Zeltrax. For hundreds of years, they watched many planets and studied different life forms. They believed they were the smartest and strongest beings in the galaxy. Most creatures, they found, were weak and easy to control. One day, the Zeltrax noticed a small blue planet, Earth. It was rich with life. Strange animals, green forests, deep oceans, and millions of tiny creatures called humans. At first, the Zeltrax did not think much about humans. They seemed soft, fragile, and simple-minded. They cannot survive for long, the Zeltrax leader said. Their bodies are weak. Their skin is thin. They are not made for true survival. But something strange caught their attention. Their scanners showed that humans lived under an open sky filled with dangerous radiation from their sun. The sun's deadly rays should have killed them. In most parts of the galaxy, sunlight burned and destroyed living things. No creature ever stood in the sun for more than a few seconds without getting badly hurt. Yet, humans walked, worked, and played under the sun like it was nothing. They laughed. They ran. Some even lay down under the sun for hours. "This is impossible," said a young Zeltrax scientist named Vorn. "Maybe the data is wrong," another replied. "Or maybe," the leader said slowly, "they are hiding something. Something powerful." Curiosity turned into obsession. The Zeltrax needed to know the truth. So, they planned a secret mission. A small team of explorers would travel to Earth and study humans up close. No contact, no fighting, only quiet watching. The spaceship Silent Gaze left their homeworld and entered Earth's orbit. From high above, hidden from human eyes, they started observing. Through their powerful vision devices, the Zeltrax saw millions of humans going about their daily lives. Men, women, children, all living without any fear of the burning sun. They watched workers building tall structures under the heat. They watched farmers working fields, children playing in parks, and old men sitting calmly in the sun's full blaze. Each moment made the Zeltrax more confused. One scientist whispered, "No shields, no armor. How are they not burning?" Another muttered, "Perhaps their bodies are made of some special material we do not understand." They tested everything they could. The heat on Earth's surface was deadly according to their standards. The ultraviolet rays were strong enough to destroy Zeltrax skin in seconds. Yet the humans were fine. Some even seemed to enjoy it. "This is against all natural laws," Vorn said, slamming his hand against the table. The Zeltrax leader, older and wiser than most, stared silently at the human images. His 4 green eyes blinked slowly. "If we do not understand this," he said, "it could be dangerous. A species that can survive under the deadly sun may have other secrets too. Secrets that could one day defeat us." Fear began to grow in the hearts of the Zeltrax. Was it possible they had misjudged humans? Were they truly a weak species, or something much, much more dangerous? The leader stood up and gave the final order. "We cannot take any more risks. We must capture one of them. We must find out how they survive. If humans hold a secret power, we must know it before it is too late." The team quickly prepared a plan. It would find a strong, healthy human, someone who seemed most exposed to the sun, and take him without being noticed. They had special machines to erase memories, so no one would ever know what happened. Inside the ship, the explorers checked their equipment. Energy nets, memory foggers, sleep rays, all ready. The ship moved closer to the Earth's surface, hidden behind clouds, invisible to human technology. "We must be careful," Vorn said. "One mistake, and the humans might discover us." The leader nodded. "And if they are as powerful as the sun itself," he said, "then we must pray we are not too late." The Silent Gaze floated quietly over a busy human city, hundreds of targets below. The team scanned for the perfect human to capture. Suddenly, the sensors beeped. There, one scout pointed. A human man, strong and bold, jogging shirtless under the burning midday sun, laughing as sweat dripped down his face. Perfect. The Zeltrax team smiled behind their breathing masks. Tonight, they would make their move. And by tomorrow, they would uncover the truth, or face something they were not prepared for. The silent gaze disappeared into the clouds as the sun set behind Earth. The hunt for the human had begun. Night fell over the human city. Lights blinked in tall buildings. Cars moved like glowing insects on black roads. Humans were busy in their small world, unaware that something dangerous watched them from the sky. High above the clouds, the Zeltrax team prepared for their mission. Their leader, Commander Xiron, gave the final instructions. "We will move fast. No mistakes. Target the strong one. Bring him alive." The humans called him Jake, a soldier, tough and fearless. He was the perfect choice. The Zeltrax believed that if any human carried the secret of sunlight survival, it would be him. Using silent hovercrafts, the aliens floated down through the clouds. Hidden by darkness and cloaking fields, they reached the park where Jake was jogging alone. Vorn aimed the sleep ray. "Ready," he whispered. A soft blue light shot across the night and hit Jake in the back. The man staggered, confused, then fell to the ground without a sound. Quickly, the Zeltrax moved in, wrapped him in an energy net, and vanished into the air. By the time a dog barked nearby, Jake was already gone, stolen into the night sky. Inside their hidden base, deep under Earth's oceans, the Zeltrax placed Jake inside a glass chamber. Strange machines surrounded him. Lights blinked. Wires buzzed. Vorn looked at the sleeping human with wide, curious eyes. "Begin the tests," Commander Xiron ordered. First, they shined bright artificial sunlight on Jake, stronger than Earth's sun. The rays hit his skin. Nothing happened. Jake just frowned in his sleep, as if annoyed, but his body showed no signs of harm. "Increase the intensity," Vorn cried. The machines buzzed louder. The light grew hotter. Still, Jake's skin did not burn. No wounds, no smoke, nothing. Instead, his body seemed to glow slightly, like he was absorbing the energy. This is not possible," muttered one scientist. "Even we would have turned to ash by now." Suddenly, Jake's eyes opened. He looked around, confused but calm. The Zeltrax froze in fear. Jake stared at the light beams hitting him and then at the aliens outside the glass. He smiled, a calm, fearless smile. "Nice sauna you built here," he said, voice heavy with humor. "You guys trying to make me sweat." The Zeltrax could not believe it. He was talking normally while bathing in a light that could kill 100 creatures in seconds. Commander Xiron spoke through a translator device. "Human, what are you?" Jake laughed softly. "I'm just a man. But we humans, we're made for the sun." The Zeltrax team looked at each other nervously. Vorn whispered, "Maybe he is not telling the full truth. Maybe humans have evolved beyond what we understand." Commander Xiron shook his head. "No species can survive true starfire. Not even the old races." The commander turned to his team. "Prepare the starfire generator," he ordered. "If this human survives that, then we are truly facing something we do not understand." The starfire generator was a forbidden weapon, a copy of a real star's burning heart. No living thing had survived even a few seconds of its direct light. The scientists hesitated. "Commander, if he resists the starfire, what should we do?" Commander Xiron's voice was cold. "Pray." They activated the starfire generator. A deep hum filled the lab. A small ball of white-hot energy floated above the machine, sending out waves of deadly heat and radiation. The glass around Jake's chamber glowed. Alarms beeped. Systems strained to hold the power inside. Jake stood tall inside the chamber, staring at the blinding light. The Zeltrax held their breath. Seconds passed, then minutes. Jake did not burn. He did not fall. Instead, he straightened his back and cracked his neck casually. Feels like a summer day in Arizona, he said with a grin. The Zeltrax panicked. Impossible, shouted Vorn. No life form can resist this. One of the younger scientists dropped his tools and fled the room in fear. Commander Xiron stared at Jake, now shining faintly under the starfire light. He realized the terrible truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not simple. Humans were something new, something dangerous. Jake placed his hands on the glass. Tiny cracks formed instantly under his touch. Commander Xiron stepped back. "Contain him," he screamed. "Contain the human." But it was too late. The cracks grew wider. Jake smiled wider. And with a sound like thunder, the glass chamber shattered into 1,000 pieces. Jake stepped forward, eyes blazing with fury and strength. "You made a big mistake," he said in a voice full of deadly calm. The Zeltrax knew then. They had awakened something that could not be controlled. The air in the underground base was thick with tension. The Zeltrax team was in a state of complete panic. The human they had captured, Jake, had shattered the glass chamber. And now he stood before them, free and unhurt. His body radiated power, strength, and a confidence they had never seen in any life form before. Commander Xiron backed away slowly, his mind racing. "What have we done?" he whispered to himself. Jake wiped his hands on his shirt, looking around at the terrified aliens. "You really think you could trap me? You're in over your heads." The Zeltrax team was paralyzed, unable to move. They had never faced a creature like this, a human who could survive the most deadly forces in the universe, a creature who seemed to draw power from the very sunlight they feared. Vorn, the young scientist, took a step forward, shaking. "This isn't possible. No species can withstand that kind of power. No living being should be immune to the starfire." Jake smirked, his voice low and full of menace. "Well, I guess I'm not like anything you've ever seen before." The commander quickly composed himself, trying to regain control of the situation. "You must understand," Xiron said. "We did not expect this. But we must now know your secret, human. How do you survive?" Jake laughed softly, then looked directly at the alien leader. "You're asking the wrong question," he said. "The real question is, what happens if you push me too far?" With that, Jake took a step toward the nearest Zeltrax soldier. The alien's eyes widened in fear as Jake's gaze burned through him like a wildfire. He raised his hands, signaling his team to ready their weapons. "We cannot let him escape," Xiron said, voice shaking. "Prepare the weapons. We need to stop him." Vorn nodded, though he was clearly unsure. He had never seen anything like this before. The Zeltrax quickly deployed their weapons: energy guns, force fields, and shields designed to contain the strongest creatures in the galaxy. But none of them had ever been tested against a being who could endure the fury of a sun's energy. One of the soldiers fired first. A powerful blast of energy shot from the gun, hitting Jake square in the chest. The blast should have torn him apart. Instead, Jake barely flinched. He smiled. "Is that all you got?" he taunted. Anger boiled inside the Zeltrax soldiers. They unleashed wave after wave of firepower. The entire room shook as the weapons discharged. The walls cracked. The energy beams hit Jake's body, but it was as though they were nothing more than harmless raindrops. The energy slid off him, harmlessly dissipating into the air. He began walking toward them slowly, each step a reminder of how unstoppable he had become. "You can't kill me. You can't even hurt me." Xiron's heart raced. This human, this creature, had somehow become a living weapon. If they didn't stop him now, they would lose everything. "We will bring you to your knees, human," Xiron shouted, his voice trembling with both anger and fear. "We have powers you cannot imagine." Jake shook his head, clearly unimpressed. "You're really underestimating me. And that's your mistake." With a sudden movement, Jake lunged forward, faster than any of the aliens had expected. The Zeltrax tried to react, But it was too late. Jake grabbed one soldier by the arm, twisting it with terrifying strength, and threw him across the room. The alien crashed into the wall, unconscious before he hit the ground. The rest of the Zeltrax soldiers hesitated, unsure whether they should attack or run. But Jake wasn't interested in playing their game anymore. He stood tall, his eyes glowing faintly, as if charged by an unseen force. "You think you can stop me with your weapons? I've walked through the flames of the sun and survived. What makes you think your little toys can hurt me?" Jake's voice was a deep growl, full of power. Vorn stepped back, fear creeping into his mind. "We have to use the final option," he whispered to Xiron. "Activate the nullifier." The nullifier was a device capable of draining the energy from any living being. It could shut down a creature's ability to withstand external forces like radiation or extreme heat. It was their last hope. Xiron nodded, signaling for the machine to be brought forward. The nullifier hummed as it powered up. A wide, glowing beam shot from the device, aimed directly at Jake. The energy washed over him, trying to drain his power, trying to force him to feel weakness. The Zeltrax scientists held their breath. This was it. If this didn't work, they would lose. For a brief moment, Jake staggered. His body flickered, as though the energy was affecting him. The Zeltrax felt a rush of hope. Could this be the moment? But then something incredible happened. Jake's body absorbed the energy from the nullifier. He grinned as his strength grew even stronger. The device sputtered, sparking and cracking, unable to drain him. Instead, it began to overheat. The Zeltrax team scrambled to shut it down. Jake stepped forward, his eyes glowing with power. "Nice try, but you can't stop me," he said, voice now a roar. "You wanted to see my true power. Well, here it is." With a single, powerful punch, Jake slammed into the floor, causing a shockwave that knocked the Zeltrax soldiers off their feet. The base shook violently. Xiron realized that they had made a terrible mistake. They had thought they were capturing a weak species, but in reality, they had unleashed the deadliest force in the galaxy. Jake stood tall, victorious, with the glowing sunlight power coursing through his body. He smiled as the aliens cowered before him. "I told you," Jake said, his voice calm but deadly. "Humans were made for the sun, and no one can stop us." The underground base trembled. The Zeltrax team had never known fear like this before. They had come to Earth thinking they could capture and study the humans, but instead they had unleashed something they couldn't control. Jake stood in front of them, radiating power, every breath a reminder that they were nothing compared to him. How is this possible?" Commander Xiron whispered, his voice shaking. "We thought we understood everything. But this human, he's not like us. Not like anything we've ever seen." Jake smiled, his eyes glowing with an intensity that made the Zeltrax shrink back. "You should have stayed in your ships and watched from the stars," he said, his voice calm but filled with power. "Now, you've made me angry, and that's a mistake you'll regret." Xiron's mind raced. He had to act fast. Jake was too strong to be contained, and the nullifier had failed. But there was still a chance to regain control. The Zeltrax had one weapon left, a fleet of battleships orbiting Earth, ready to destroy anything in their path. If they couldn't stop Jake on the ground, they would destroy him from the sky. But Jake wasn't going to wait for them to make their move. He could feel their fear, their desperation, and he could sense the power building in his own body. His hands were buzzing with energy, and his muscles were ready to strike. "You think you can control me?" Jake's voice was a growl, his eyes narrowing. "You're not the first to try, but you will be the last." In an instant, Jake was moving. He was faster than any of the Zeltrax had ever anticipated. He smashed through walls, tore down energy barriers, and sent soldiers flying with a single punch. The underground base, once a symbol of Zeltrax strength, was now a battlefield. Vorn, the young scientist, ran through the chaos, shouting orders to his team. Activate the emergency protocol. We need to launch the battle fleet now. We can't let him destroy everything. But it was too late. Jake was everywhere. He was like a force of nature, unstoppable and overwhelming. His fists crashed into walls, tearing through reinforced metal as if it were paper. With each step, he moved closer to the command center. Sciron tried to rally his team. Stay focused. We will not let one human destroy us. We must hold our ground. But Jake had no interest in holding ground. He was determined to end this. His voice boomed as he reached the heart of the base, where the Zeltrax's most important technology was stored. This is your last chance. Leave Earth and never return. I'm giving you an option. Sciron's hands shook as he stood before Jake. The alien leader knew he had no choice. They had no way of stopping Jake, and if they fought him, it would only mean the end of their mission, and possibly the end of their species. But just as Sciron opened his mouth to speak, something changed. A loud, angry roar shook the base. The ground beneath them cracked, and a shadow fell over the room. The Zeltrax had activated their final defense. Above them, in the deep sky, the Zeltrax battle fleet was descending. Dozens of massive ships filled the heavens, their weapons powered up and ready. The ground began to shake with the force of their landing. Sciron, still trembling, looked up at the sky, then turned to Jake. You may be powerful, human, but you cannot defeat all of us. Jake stared at the ships above. His eyes glowed even brighter now, as if the sun itself was within him. He felt the power surge through him. His body was no longer just human. It had become something more, something greater. You're wrong, Jake said, his voice full of confidence. You see, you've never fought a human before. You've only studied us from afar. You think you understand us, but you don't. With a wave of his hand, Jake unleashed a pulse of energy so strong that the air crackled with it. The pulse shot up, hitting the nearest Zeltrax ship in the sky. There was an explosion as the ship's outer shell cracked and then ruptured, sending debris raining down to Earth. The other ships responded immediately, firing their massive weapons at Jake. But he was faster. He dodged the first blasts with ease, and then, with a single leap, he shot into the sky like a comet, his body glowing brighter than any star. The Zeltrax watched in horror as Jake tore through their fleet. His energy blasts shattered the ships one by one, sending them crashing down to Earth in fiery explosions. The battle fleet, once a symbol of Zeltrax might, was now falling apart. The sky was filled with fire and smoke. Sciron stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. His worst fear was coming true. The Zeltrax, a powerful and ancient species, were being defeated by a single human. Jake landed back on the ground with a thunderous crash. The earth trembled beneath him, and dust filled the air. He stood tall, his chest heaving with energy, his body glowing with the power of 1,000 suns. The few remaining Zeltrax soldiers trembled as they looked at Jake. They could see the truth now. They had underestimated him. They had underestimated humanity. Jake's voice echoed through the battlefield, calm but powerful. You wanted to conquer us, but you've only made us stronger. Now it's time for you to leave, or face the consequences. Sciron, broken and defeated, dropped to his knees. He had failed. The Zeltrax had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Leave Earth, Jake commanded, and tell your people that we are not weak. We will not be controlled. The surviving Zeltrax bowed their heads, knowing that the fight was over. Earth was no longer theirs to conquer. It belonged to humanity. And Jake, the human they had tried to defeat, stood victorious, his power unmatched and his spirit unbroken. The battle was over, but the war for Earth had only just begun. Jake stood on the cracked, burning ground, his body still glowing from the energy he had absorbed from the Zeltrax. The sky above was filled with smoke, and pieces of the Zeltrax fleet rained down to the Earth like fiery meteors. The remains of their once proud battleships littered the ground, a grim reminder of their failed invasion. The few remaining Zeltrax soldiers, those who had managed to survive Jake's onslaught, were retreating. They fled into the dark corners of the world, knowing that they would never return. They had learned the hard way that humanity was not to be underestimated. But Jake wasn't finished yet. He turned his head slowly, watching as the last of the alien invaders disappeared into the distance. His eyes burned with the power of the sun, his body still thrumming with the energy that now flowed through him like a living force. Humanity's not just a species, Jake muttered to himself. We're a force of nature. The ground beneath him began to cool, and the harsh wind settled. But there was a deep silence now, a silence that felt like the calm before another storm. Jake's thoughts turned to the future. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. The Zeltrax had left Earth for now, but they were not the only alien race in the galaxy. And while humanity had proven itself stronger than these invaders, Jake knew this was only the beginning. There would be more challenges, more battles, and more enemies coming from the stars. But Earth wasn't going to face them alone anymore. Jake looked up to the sky, his eyes narrowing. We've got to be ready for the next time. The legacy begins. Back in the cities of Earth, the people had begun to hear the stories of Jake's victory. The news spread like wildfire, not just through Earth's media, but across the entire globe. Humans had never seen anything like this before. A single human standing against an entire fleet of powerful aliens, and defeating them with nothing but their own strength and the power of the sun. Jake had become a symbol, a living legend. But more than that, he had sparked something within humanity. It wasn't just about the power he wielded. It was about what he represented. He was proof that humanity could stand up to anything. No matter how impossible the challenge, no matter how powerful the enemy, humans could survive. And they could fight back. It wasn't long before other humans started to show signs of the same strength Jake had discovered within himself. People all over the world began to tap into powers they didn't even know they had. Some were able to manipulate energy like Jake, while others found they could endure extreme conditions or heal injuries at an astonishing rate. Earth was changing, and Jake knew that humanity was evolving. This is just the start, Jake said one evening, standing on a rooftop overlooking the city. He had grown more powerful with each passing day. The energy that flowed through him seemed endless. But it wasn't just his own strength that made him feel so different. It was the realization that humans were beginning to unlock their true potential, and that potential would change the course of history. Jake was no longer the only one with this power. Across the world, humans were starting to rise. They trained, learned, and prepared for whatever the future might hold. They knew now that Earth wasn't just a small, insignificant planet in the corner of the galaxy. It was a world full of untapped potential, a world that had been underestimated for far too long. The Zeltrax return. A few months later, the Zeltrax made contact. Their ships appeared at the edges of Earth's atmosphere, massive and ominous. But this time, they didn't come in force. They came to negotiate. Tyron, the once proud commander, now a broken and humbled figure, appeared before humanity in a desperate attempt to save what was left of his people. He was a shadow of the fierce leader he had once been. We were wrong, Xiron began, his voice trembling. We underestimated you. We thought we could conquer this world. But now, we see the truth. Jake stood at the front of the human delegation, his expression unreadable. He had learned a lot since that first confrontation. He knew the Zeltrax were not a species to be taken lightly, but he also knew that humanity had the power to shape its own destiny. You're right, Jake said. You underestimated us. But we won't make the same mistake. Earth is not yours to conquer. It's ours to protect. Xiron lowered his head in shame. We don't wish to fight anymore. We want to leave this planet in peace. We have no choice. Jake's voice was steady, but firm. Then go, and tell your people the truth. Earth belongs to humanity now. and we will defend it, no matter the cost. As the Zeltrax ships turned to leave, Jake watched them fade into the distance. But something had changed. The battle for Earth might have ended, but the story of humanity's rise had only just begun. There would be more threats in the future, more battles to fight. But now, humanity was ready. Jake smiled. This is just the beginning.